It's not my fault.
Oh my God! This has to be Squatch, man. Look at.
I know, man. Or nature could not have made these sophisticated algorithms of logs falling.
This is insane.
I can't believe it. Sasquatch is all over the country. It's going to be Sasquatch, and he's going to be like 50 feet tall.
There's an X. There's an X.
Oh my God. Call Mulder.
The views and opinions expressed by the guests of Sasquatch Experience do not necessarily reflect the opinion of the hosts, sponsors, or affiliates of the Sasquatch Experience. As always, listener discretion is advised.
911, what are you reporting?
We got someone or something crawling around out here.
Does a legend walk among us, lurking in the forests of our world?
Did you see what it was? Was it a person or an animal or?
I can't tell. All I know is that my central light came on and I just happened to glimpse and see this thing running across the yard. A good-sized man or something. Looks like a man. I don't know what it was.
For over 15 years, we've talked with scientists, researchers, investigators, and witnesses, trying to gain insight and proof around the existence of this mysterious entity.
Jesus Christ, you better...
Sir?
Gio!
Hello?
Get somebody out here.
What's going on now, sir?
That son of a bitch is about 6'9", I don't know.
Do you see him now, sir?
Yes, I'm looking right at him.
Uh-oh. Okay, hang on.
He's right...
Is he in your yard, sir?
Yeah, God, he's big.
Okay, what's he doing in your yard?
He's looking at me.
Join us as we continue into the investigation of the Sasquatch Experience. And good evening, everyone. Welcome, Sasquatch Experience. Monday night, back with you live this week. Last week, we apologize. We had some personal business to attend to as we did a tribute show to Butch Wachowski over on Spaced Out Radio. We own the night over at spacedoutradio.com. Our friend Dave Scott had a really nice tribute show to Butch Wachowski, and we chose to participate in that as opposed to doing a live show. But we made it up to you with that great Research Roundtable, that classic episode from 2007 with Dr. John Bindernagel. And man, folks liked that episode. We got a lot of feedback on it. And it had a special appearance, Henry, by Jean-Eric Beckyard, the bane of my existence, the pain in my ass. And I won, because he's dead. I won.
Jean-Luc Beckyard.
And no sweat off my brow and no sweat off anyone's ass. He was a miserable prick. But he did keep things interesting. And if you want to go hear his hijinks, go back and listen to some of those episodes. Good time. Who do we got with us tonight so far? We got Alex Stewart, our friend from up in Alaska, joining us. Thank you, Alex, for joining in this week. Others that we can't see, but glad you're joining us, whether you're on Facebook Live, whether you're on Twitch, whether you're on YouTube. We're just happy you're choosing to spend a little bit of your Monday night here with us as we are in Pennsylvania, Mississippi, and Chicago. I think I did all that right, but I don't know. I
Sort of,
quit paying
kind
attention.
of right.
Well, you know how it goes. Alex says, let's go squatching. Our friend Jamie King. Hi, buds. Hello, Jamie. Jamie's still recuperating from a pretty serious hand injury, and we're glad he's here with us. No, James, behave.
I would like to just do a quick interjection here. At the beginning of the show, tribute to Del Lecapoy, and thank you, Sean, for putting that together.
Thanks for bringing it to our
For
attention,
those that are listening that don't know, Del and Corey Lecapoy, brothers, and as Corey puts it, that was his best friend. But they were both so big into the Sasquatch research in the Manitoba of Canada, north of Winnipeg. And the way that they would go about the research is they wouldn't take it seriously. And what I mean by that is they would approach it the same way I did. they approached it the same way I would. They'd set up camp, and they would just have fun. They would eat, and if something came in to observe, that's how they would go about their research. But Dell, a stellar individual. The guy was actually putting together a huge dollar amount, and I think we would all fall off our chairs if he knew what the dollar amount was, to have you, Sean, and myself and Julie Wrench and LeGros, full paid for trip up to Manitoba to go to where some of these encounters were happening. And unfortunately, he had some issues, and my heart is broken. I know all of us at Sasquatch Experience are, embracing Corey right now because he's going through a tough time, and he's
good
had
friend.
an amazing, absolutely, and he had
super good friend,
2 experiences in one day, and those are 2 of my favorites, and yeah, both of them absolute great guys. So the video you saw at the very beginning of the show was Dell and
Cold
Corey.
Mulder.
It's one of my favorite videos of all time because it is totally tongue-in-cheek of the fact of how researchers will go out there and they'll see a broken twig and say, oh my God, must be Bigfoot. And this was their way of just making that video back. And, it just, I laugh. I've seen that video probably 200 times now. I laugh every time I see it. So
it doesn't get old.
Thanks to Dell. He's able to still make us laugh. And Corey, we're with you, brother. So thank you.
Absolutely. Corey, good friend of ours. Our heart's with you, buddy. Be strong through this. You need us. You know how to get us. Reach out to us. And Dell, here's thinking of you, my friend. Just sad. Mm-hmm. We've lost so many friends over the last couple of years, and it seems unreal. And not to get into a melancholy mood, or it just sucks. We're still recovering from the loss of Butch. That was hard. Still is hard every day, folks. Like, if you didn't know, he's like a grandfather to me, a good man. And it just seems like we keep losing him. And Baker, turn your goddamn notifications off.
I did.
You didn't. Fuck. Anyhow, let's get past the sad stuff.
Really, Sean, express how you feel, okay?
Well, 1 hour a week, guys. That's what I asked. 1 hour a week. And so let's get into this, guys. British Columbia, kind of we could say the providential home of Bigfoot, right? The providential, rather. I guess I can't freaking talk at the moment, but we'll get past that. A lot of history comes out of British Columbia, right? Mm-hmm. The Native American legends of the tribes up in British Columbia, up in Canada. You got John Green. We all know I'm a John Green guy.
Yeah.
I should make that a T-shirt. I'm a John Green guy. Just so much history out of that area. You got William Rowe. You've got, Henry, you got the Chapman story, Ruby Creek, right?
Yes, Ruby Creek.
Ruby Creek. Like, you got all kinds of stories to this day. I think it's over 180 sightings that are just in the BFRO database. I'd have to go look at that number. I could be wrong. But it's just an enormous amount of sightings in that area, in that Pacific Northwest region, right? Borders right along the United States. Gentlemen, I'm excited to go into British Columbia. What about you?
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. And for those that are listening that may not be familiar or new to this, British Columbia of Canada sits just north of Washington State, and it runs up what I always said, the throat of the dog, which, I consider the dog's head Alaska. Okay. So that's the furthest west province of Canada, and it also includes Vancouver and Vancouver Island, where there's a plethora of Bigfoot sightings.
Well, there you go. Baker, Henry, how about yous?
I'm glad that we could focus finally on the BBC, the big brown creature.
Well, I'm excited because, we get to focus. BC is the home of the name Sasquatch. J.W. Burns. Mm-hmm. J.W. Burns, the teacher, who was a teacher on a Native American First Nations reservation, came up with an anglicized version of a Salish Indian word, Saskets.
Mm-hmm.
Don't hurt yourself.
Turned it into Sasquatch.
Right.
Little entomology for you folks there. And that's where, we kind of British Columbia, a happening place for our journey tonight. So Henry, we talked about, and I had this pulled up here. Grab all my devices that have all my different notes on them because putting them in one area would be difficult. But as we go, like the first article about a mysterious creature British Columbia comes like in 1884.
Huh.
Jacko.
Do you know of any other stories that predate that in British Columbia besides legend? I'm talking about like newspaper accounts or anything pre-1900s of Bigfoot in BC.
The only one I know of is Jacko, and Jacko may be a hoax.
Yeah, well, tell us a little bit about Jacko. Folks may not be too familiar with that.
Well, it was at Yale, British Columbia, and a train was riding along. All of a sudden, the engineer spots what he thinks is some kind of I don't know if he thought it was a bear or what it was, but it was laying on the tracks, and it woke up. It started climbing up the side of the mountain there, and they decided, wait a minute, that's not a bear. What is that? It looked kind of like a chimpanzee a little bit, and apparently they went and they went and dropped a rock on its head and captured it. Used bell rope. And nothing much is known about it after
what happened to it, right?
Capture, yeah.
I often get it confused with Oliver, the strange chimpanzee. I don't know why I get those two mixed up at times. But yeah, I guess Jacko. I'm just reading what became of Jacko, thought to be a young Sasquatch. There's no further record of what became of him. Or George, is it Tilbury, who was to exhibit him in England. So they say it could be dismissed as a hoax, but it should be pointed out that the two respected Yale residents had lifetime memories of excitement that gripped the town after his capture in 1884. That's interesting. There's an article about it called "What Became of BC's First Sasquatch." Looking back in time with T.W. Patterson. Pretty interesting article. I have it pulled up there. I just said it's not going to show up if I try to send it to everybody. So you got Jacko. Then you move on to something, a little bit more interesting with that, the story of Albert Ostman. Probably the next big story out of British Columbia. It's just so interesting because there's so much that goes into this 1924 near the Toba Inlet, right? So much of this, he goes camping, gets picked up while he's sleeping, carried for miles in his knapsack over a shoulder of some creature, gets put down into a cave, and is absconded by a family of Bigfoot. Mm-hmm. And after some time of being studied and kind of kept captive, he feeds the old one some snuff, gets sick, and then he, hits the cave, gets out of there, and gets the hell out of Dodge in a roundabout way. But there's so much to that story, Henry Vance, and Bake, that is contested, right?
Mm-hmm.
Well, Albert gave us so many details, very defined details about the youth, the female matriarch, the male, their behaviors, and it's not like he was out there camping. He was prospecting. So this was, making a living and, went about telling the whole story. And I know we've done, the story of Albert
but you make
Ostman.
a good point with that, though, Vance, that this is a livelihood thing.
Mm-hmm.
And what would he have to lose by telling this story? Or what did he have to gain? I mean, maybe some monetary compensation. I don't know if people were paying for Bigfoot stories like that back then, but he had a hell of a lot to lose. Like he lost prospecting time and dollars.
No,
I don't
this
think
is
he was
true,
insured.
but he was also accused of the fact that he told that story to keep others out of that area. So maybe he came across something, but that just seems so phenomenal because so much of what he detailed in his story is still very relevant and prevalent to cases today that weren't even talked about back then.
But that could be. I just don't understand that if he left immediately and didn't cash in on any kind of prospecting,
right?
He
didn't talk about it for how many years?
But why would he? What benefit would he have of keeping people away from it if he himself wasn't even going to go back?
Right. Yeah, and he didn't share this story for I forget
years.
The amount of years, but it was years before he even shared that story.
What, 30-something years? 30,
right.
Yeah.
Right.
33 years. He waited to 1957 when he saw the William Rowe account.
Right.
In the newspaper.
Go ahead, Big.
Well, it's just your theory is as if he's a Scooby-Doo villain. Let's make up a ghost so nobody gets near my prospect. Minor 49er here, or minors, whatever. But he, if he was going to wait 30 some years to do something about it, that's really not trying to protect his land.
No,
that's more like, like the conversations you have with the one guy got drunk one night and tells you a story that's like totally crazy, but you remember the next day. Or like I said, you said, Henry, he had heard somebody else and said, oh shit, that's what happened to me. Maybe I should tell some people.
But the William Rowe account's much different than Albert Ostman's.
Yeah.
Right.
I mean, so I think maybe that somebody saw a creature might have spurred him to share that story. But, I mean, the detail and the encounters themselves are two very separately. I mean, aside from seeing a creature, they're not, they have nothing in common. Would you agree, Henry?
Absolutely.
Yeah, the William Rowe story is just more like a lengthy sighting than more so of an interaction where Albert Ostman is not only physically taken by one of these creatures, but he's held captive, has opportunity to study them. How long was he with them, Henry? I can't.
6 days.
That's
days.
a long time.
Right.
6 days is, think about that, folks. Right there, Lee, looking into the camera, listening to you at home. Think about, or looking at you at home. Hopefully you're listening to me. Think about that, spending 6 days captive by a family of Sasquatch. Do you think you're going to get out of that alive, I guess, is my question.
Well, that's
Anything
certainly
after the
life-altering.
How about it? That's how missing 411 happens right there,
Yeah, right.
So let's get into William Rowe. Henry, take it away with William Rowe.
William Rowe was just out there hunting, I guess, and all of a sudden he comes across what he thinks is a bear. And then he realizes when it stands up, wait, that's not a bear. He says this 6 foot tall female creature, because apparently he has breasts, and he had thought about shooting it. He even leveled his rifle at it, but then he thought, no, I wouldn't feel right shooting it. So he did not shoot it, and then when he got home, he told his daughter about it, and his daughter made a sketch based on his description and sent it to John Green. That's how John Green got a hold of it.
Which is really interesting because, again, it mentions breasts, and that's pre-Patterson film. But if you look at the proportions of the creature from the William Rowe drawing, let me see if I can share this tab here so I can pull it up so you guys can see it, if you're okay with that.
Yeah, this is all on the fly, by the way. Which I've had that, I've heard that debate too because of Rowe's experience that it was a female, that's what prompted Patterson to do a hoax and put breasts on the creature. I don't.
Right there,
I
you guys
just
see.
didn't see that
That's it.
one having
That's
to
it
do with
right
the
there.
other. Yeah.
Yep.
Right.
But then, but then draw comparisons to the Patterson-Gimlin creature, right?
Right.
That head shape almost similar.
Mm-hmm.
Breasts, length of the arm proportion, length of the legs, the belt,
And the
bulk
whole body,
and build.
Right.
Like, you look at that drawing, and you can definitely see parallels between that and the object in the Patterson-Gimlin film.
Mm-hmm.
But
Go ahead.
But in a way, though, if they're the same creature or from the same creature, you still would get that.
Yeah, I mean, if you're not wrong, if they are the same creature, they're maybe not the same creature, but of the same species, you'd have that similarity. I think that's one of the things that add credence. I think with Bigfoot, sometimes you can't just take one instance at face value and say this is the evidence. You take a bunch of the collectedness, put it together, and build your case for it, right? It's like almost like as if you're getting ready to do some sort of criminal trial. You pull everything together to tell the story.
Right.
Bigfoot, Law and Order right there as well.
Yeah, would have been solved a long time ago.
Jack McCoy.
Mm-hmm.
All I got to do is put Briscoe on that shit. Boom.
Lenny Briscoe. But I don't want to get too far into this because when we take our break, we'll come back and Henry's going to go into his favorite British Columbia Bigfoot story. But, we talked about John Green just briefly, but again, John Green, whose home becomes British Columbia, right? Harrison Hot Springs. He becomes mayor of that town at some point. Bigfoot becomes a big part of not just the British Columbia, Harrison Hot Spring area. It consumes John Green's life, right? And John Green was a serious newspaper man, Columbia credentials in terms of his degree in journalism, very serious-minded. And he first takes on the Bigfoot story, reprints one kind of tongue-in-cheek about a girl being taken from the hotel, kidnapped. And to him, it starts off as kind of a tongue-in-cheek Bigfoot story for his newspaper. And then they have an event in the town, and people start reporting their sightings to John, and he's like, there's something to this. Maybe I really need to seriously investigate this. And then John Green meets the scene. And when we come back, we'll talk about that. We're going to take this news. We'll be right back, folks.
The following is a celebrity impersonation for Sasquatch Experience. Sasquatch Experience. Tie my shoes here because I can't do the news without tying my shoes. This is the Sasquatch Experience, stranger than fiction news and stories. And let me kick it off by saying at the beginning of the show, the views and opinions of the Sasquatch Experience, stranger than fiction news is just that. It's an opinion or a view. Reading an article. So there. All right. Here we go. First page. Henry May the 4th drinks a fifth. That's fake news. I think it was more like half a fifth. All right, here we go. Here's touching base on what we chit-chatted about last week. A highly predatory brown bear woke up from hibernation and killed 38 reindeer calves in a single month. And then 18 moose, baby ones, the next month, according to a new study. The unnamed 13-year-old female was one of 15 brown bears researchers tracked in northern Sweden to understand how the bears use their landscape. They found that bears change habitats to target reindeer and moose calves in spring. The exact spaces bears occupied varied depending on how many calves they hunted, with some bears, like the unnamed female, killing more than others. What a bitch. So why are some bears more predatory? It must be a combination of different factors, such as innate behavior related to personality. For instance, some people are more aggressive than others. Researchers did not indicate these highly predatory bears pose any more of a threat to humans. Now, brown bears are the most widely distributed bears on Earth. That's kind of a strange word, distributed, as if aliens just evenly sprinkled them throughout the area. See, this is what's considered a view or an opinion. So if you want to write a complaint letter, you can go to the basement of the Sasquatch Experience Studios, and you can see our complaint department, Helen Hunt. So just go to Helen Hunt and drop your complaint letter off there. Anyway, they can be found in 45 countries across North America, Europe, Asia, according to the International Union of Conservation of Nature. The new paper is part of a long-term project to study the lives of brown bears in Norway and Sweden. My apologies to Norwegians and Swedish, if we have any of those listeners. Besides, I have Swedish blood in my genome, so I guess I get a pass. In the new study, researchers tracked bears with GPS collars between 2010 and 2012 and recorded the bears' kills. As the reindeer calving period begins, brown bears in Sweden move to high elevation, rugged terrain preferred by reindeer with young, and then onto habitats used by calving moose, such as near lush forests, according to a statement released by Nottingham Trent University, which, by the way, happens to be located in the UK. This allows them to hunt vulnerable calves. Bored yet? So this research team mapped the habitats that different bears used and compared individual kill rates. Bears were called highly predatory if they killed more than the average kill rate. Really? Go figure. So if a bear kills a lot more animals than most bears, it's highly predatory. No shnikey. And the fun part is, people got paid for that. It's just like got paid to say, well, I don't know. That bear kills a lot more animals than all those bears over there. I guess that's highly predatory. Okay, we're done with our $3 million a year research. Oh, man, I stood in the wrong line. So, what do we take away from all of this? Yes, bears are dangerous. Thanks again for listening to this edition of the Sasquatch Experience Stranger Than Fiction News. And now let's get back to talking farther north, bipedalism.
Thanks, Vance.
I'm so sorry.
Helen Hunt, huh? Helen Hunt.
That's our complaint department. Just go to
Well,
Helen Hunt.
I think
She's
we need
there every Tuesday.
every Tuesday.
So we'll see you next Tuesday.
Back.
There it is. There's the disappointment. We were all waiting.
You know, I try to do a show here, and
Hey, nobody
Anyhow.
latched on to BBC, so I didn't
no,
do what I
wait,
can.
all right. You know, there's a reason why I usually drink when I do this show, and I've been doing the last few of them sober, so I think I need to readjust my. Yeah, I don't know. Lighten up, Forker. Lighten up, I guess.
But
Vance,
no.
good job with the news segment. I think we need to give you some notes before you do that. Back to bipedalism.
Oh, well, sure.
Well, I tell you what, my ribs hurt from laughing through that news segment. Our apologies to folks in Norway and Sweden.
Sweden.
He tried his best. All right. Back to this. Well, we were before we left to come back onto for the news break to come back onto the program. We were talking about John Green, of course, the legendary Bigfoot researcher, newspaper man, my hero. Someone that Henry and I got to interview a couple times in the mid 2000s.
Yep.
Is fantastic gentleman. And he really did a lot of the legwork and research there in British Columbia. And it's a very important part of what we do. His book, Sasquatch Tapes Among Us, which I usually keep nearby. As you can see, this tome, it's quite the, some heft to it. Some of the listeners out there, you'd be benefited to read it. I think it made one of, was it Daniel Perez's and Steven Streuffert's top 20 lists of books for Bigfoot for 2021, I believe.
Isn't
Well,
there
Daniel
over 1,000
Perez-
accounts in that book? I believe.
There's a lot of in the book.
We're not going to count, but I think.
What were you
that's-
going to say, Henry?
I was going to say Daniel Perez's latest list has that book, I think, at number 2.
What was his number 1?
Gosh,
The Know All
can't
Be
remember.
Tall. Way to go.
It's not that important.
That's okay.
It's not that important, Henry. Don't hurt yourself. We want to get back to talking about the important things here, which was your favorite British Columbia sighting, Henry. Tell us about Ruby Creek.
Okay, Ruby Creek. There's a family there, George and Jeannie Chapman. They were actually Native American, or actually First Nations, I should say. And they lived in a nice little house there. And one day while George was at work, he worked on the railroad. Their children were outside, and one of them come running in the house saying, "Mommy, there's a big cow coming out of the woods." Well, Jeannie Chapman looks out the window and notices that it's not a cow, but it's a Sasquatch. And of course, her people have been knowing about the Sasquatch for years. And I'm not sure if it was a legend with them of where it was fatal to look upon a Sasquatch or not. But one thing that Jean Chapman did was she grabbed a blanket, she got her kids behind the blanket, and they ran down to the river and then ran to then ran on the railroad tracks into town, to the nearest town. And apparently the Sasquatch that showed up actually didn't go into the house, but it went into this area where there was some smoked salmon or salted fish in a barrel.
Because who wouldn't want that?
Damn right, fish in a barrel.
There was some salted fish in a barrel.
Is that your colon, Baker?
What the heck?
It's not me.
And the creature apparently overturned this. It must have. I think it ate some of the fish, but it was too salty. It knocked the barrel over, broke the barrel open, and then its tracks were found going down to the river, where it apparently doused its mouth with water. There was an individual named S.E. Tifting, Gustav Tifting, who John Green already knew and respected. He was working for the railroad at that time, and he actually was one of the first to actually see the footprints in the Chapman's yard. And they stepped on some potatoes, stepped over a railroad fence. They couldn't find any place where it had gone under or through. It just stepped over the fence. And the tracks were about 18 inches long. So not only did you have a case where a family claimed to have seen this thing, but then also it was followed up by other people.
Yeah, that was a pretty interesting story for the time, right? Pretty scary. You had the child running to the mom. They run into the bush, right? They don't run back into that. They run into the woods. They go to, and for me, like, I guess, I don't know, would my first instinct be to run into the woods? But if you see something this large coming to you in your house, probably not made of the structures they're made of today.
No.
Maybe you wouldn't have felt any safer in the house than you did outside. You know, you probably had a better chance of success fleeing than being stuck, indoors with this thing. And who wouldn't want the smoked salmon? I mean, I'd chase a family out for smoked salmon. I mean, that's got to be delicious as it is, but it did some damage in this place, Henry.
Well, I'm kind of considering, from what the story is, and I've read the story myself, the salmon was being preserved in salt. It was being brined.
Salt.
And, that is more of a pungent smell, and it is behavior of any opportunistic, animal. A bear would do that too. But it makes perfect sense. You eat something super salty, the first thing you're going for is water. And that's just, that's like that with all animals. You're going to seek water afterwards. And it could very well be that the culture of that time is that you wouldn't go back in your house because you knew the creature was going to go seeking out whatever it could be opportunistic gathering food. And so maybe that would be the reason why you would, run towards the railroad tracks to get to the nearest town, get into a population of people where you might not be pursued by this thing anymore. I'm not saying it was a bear. I'm saying it's, the prospect of it being a Sasquatch, looking and smelling something that may be tasty, and then got a little pissed at the fact that it was too salty and makes its way off to Ruby Creek.
You think Mrs. Chapman? You think Mrs. Chapman would know the difference between a bear and this?
Oh, I would believe so. Sure, of course, especially living in that area and all the lore and stories of the area. Sure, you would think so.
I mean, the concept is solid. I mean, that's why when you go to bars, they give you free pretzels because you drink more when you're salty.
Yeah. Oh, that's why, is it? Oh, yeah.
How's that working out for your cholesterol?
Thanks,
Baker.
Well, I had to cut back on the salty pretzels.
So, extra salt.
Salty comments.
Those things are amazing, though. I'm sorry. They make an extra salty pretzel if you can find them. They're amazing.
But now when you go in, now those are just some of the classic stories. William Rowe, who worked for the highway department. So you'd think that William would have been more well-versed in, knowing what wildlife looks like. Hunting, he would be a little bit more familiar, could tell the difference. And at first, when he sees the Bigfoot, he thought it might have been a grizzly until it got close and realized it was 6 feet tall, standing and had pendulous breasts.
Right.
Then the Chapman account, which is, just scary in itself. The Albert Ostman story, very strange, which wasn't too far from the time period of Ape Canyon, right? So those two
great story
encounters side by side, right? Not side by side location, but I'm talking about near the same time frame.
Right. Yeah.
It just made a lot of some of those early stories, I guess, of Bigfoot are pretty traumatic, even by today's standards, right? I think the next stories you hear are kind of, sometimes I just don't know how to, how much to really believe some of these more modern accounts that are really, horrifying, and like a terrorist Bigfoot chasing them down in the woods and wanting to twist their heads off. But I think there's just something a little bit more, I want to say, believable about those early accounts, mainly because there wasn't so much fiction around.
And there wasn't as much population around that time either. Right.
Yeah, but people weren't writing science fiction then on Bigfoot. They didn't have their...
Not on Bigfoot, no.
You know what I'm saying. I mean, I'm sure they were writing science fiction. I was talking about in the sense that they're not writing these fantasy Bigfoot stories at the time, especially from young children. And then you got the Fraser Valley stories, just a lot of accounts. I'm just going through a list here on just the BFRO database. You go to Bobby Short's website, BigfootEncounters.com, and find all kinds of stories there.
Well, you're able to just take a look at Vancouver Island. I mean, the sightings that are on that island are absolutely mind-blowing. Just on the island within itself, of course, it's, when I say island, don't think it's small. It's huge. The island is easily bigger than the state of Illinois, but nonetheless, the uninhabited and the encounters on Vancouver Island itself. And there's, those out there that, proclaim that they've, seen the creature several times. And, I take it with a grain of salt. It is what it is. And those documentaries are out there, but you can take a look at the sighting maps just for Vancouver Island alone.
You know what's really interesting to that is the, you know, how does it get to the island, right? And I think it was was it James Fay that did an episode? Bobo did an episode about it. Was it Monster Quest?
That wasn't Bobo. That wasn't Bobo. It was Monster Quest, and they showed a group of bears swimming from one shore to the other.
But was the episode like it was about Vancouver Island, and were they talking about sea apes or something?
Yes.
Yes. And Bobo wasn't in that episode?
No, that was Thomas Steenberg and Rick Knoll.
Okay, I don't know why I thought Bobo was in there. Him and Steenberg are not even remotely similar in looks. I apologize. But, you know, we should have got John Kirk or Tom Steenberg on for this episode. You know, we are talking about, you know, farther north this season, so we have time to get them on here. But you were talking about Vancouver Island. What year did the sighting reports really start picking up in that area, Vance? Do you know offhand?
No, I don't know offhand. I just recently had taken a look at sighting maps and documented. I know it was starting within the early 1980s.
Gotcha.
So the population of Vancouver Island in human population was starting to develop, and therefore there was a lot more sightings. And of course, you know, on Vancouver Island, there's the hot spots. There's one that's west central on the coastline, seems to be a hot spot. There's some hot spots closer south, southwest of the island that had a lot of sightings, and some of them were brief. You know, Class A, Class B, and Class C type of sightings. You know, road crossings and so on and so forth. But you know, the population on the island itself is starting to blossom with human development and so on. So I think there's probably going to be a lot more sightings on the island itself, and that's just one limited area.
Well,
in British Columbia, I mean, British Columbia is a huge province of Canada.
Well, the reason why I brought that up is because, you know, there have been accounts in Pennsylvania of these beings observed swimming. I think one was actually potentially near Lake Erie or something. Like, it's just something because, you know, they often... Go ahead.
I only laugh only because that's the one thing that freaks LeGros out the most is a Bigfoot swimming in the water. For whatever reason, you know, I could understand a Bigfoot swimming to get from place, but every time she hears about a Bigfoot swimming, she just kind of loses her mind. It's just like, no thanks, I'm out, and she'll sign off, and you know.
I wonder what it's about it, like, because you know,
well,
I think it's orangutans.
See, yeah.
Was it orangutans they've discovered that can swim now as well?
Well, there are a couple of smaller primates in South America that actually will swim underwater to collect shellfish.
Yeah, but I'm talking about like great apes.
I mean, they was always thought, oh, you know, apes can't swim, and here it was proven that, you know, they certainly can.
Yeah, but
and of course, you know, we go back to the Billy ape discovery back in 2001, where here they are bipedal, 6-foot bipedal apes that walk around in the swamps. Well, that's why they're bipedal, because they don't want to get their entire body. And then they're scavenging for aquatic life also.
Yeah, but you would think that as far as swimming is, you know, because the body's naturally buoyant, as long as they could get used to the water and not freak out, I mean, they could learn to swim.
Well, I
don't
think
know
so.
If there's like recreational sports, you know.
They don't like the water, but they'll traverse it when they have to.
Right. I mean,
right,
like
but
bears are on water, but they'll go get salmon. You know?
Exactly, Bake. That's a great point. Look, polar bears can swim for, you know, hundreds of miles. You know, they've tracked polar bears swimming for over 200 miles. It's not because of the global warming thing. They're just traversing the area and collecting fish, and they're good. It's storms and so on that could be dangerous to them, and they would drown. But they're aquatic animals, and people really don't associate a bear as an aquatic animal. And we all swim. I don't know the last time you've been in a Speedo, Sean, but we all do.
Last Tuesday.
No,
Last
okay. Well,
Tuesday.
that's
I
good.
like to, I like get out there and show it off a little bit.
But hey, summer months come around. It's a great cooling device, and who's to say that a Squatch wouldn't take a dip when it's summer season up in the BC?
You can often find Bacon Eye in our Speedos and Mankinis.
I will never go
summer.
to Mankini. I never will attend.
That's Baker's favorite swimwear.
Just remember, when you see it, I was in a pool.
Why not? Okay.
I went off tangent there, didn't we?
We do that from time to time.
Sorry about
That's part
that.
of our charm.
Sorry, I went a little Constanza there for a minute.
Yeah.
It's his first natural defense.
But I could certainly see a Sasquatch traversing water to get from one shore to another. Why not? If it's a shortcut and they're adapt and look, bipedal creatures with opposable thumbs are pretty good swimmers, and we only know that by us, and they're pretty good swimmers.
Some better than others.
See what I wouldn't. Yeah, some better than others, but I wouldn't see that being an impossibility. And when you go through all the descriptions of witness encounters of how muscular and the power in which they moved and climbed a cliff, well, if they're that physically ripped, I can't see why they wouldn't be able to hit the water and be fine with it.
Yeah.
No, I stumped everybody, didn't I?
No, I'm just looking through these sightings here. I was trying to find a cool one to pull up for us because there's a lot of like 130. What was the count here? It was 134 on the BFRO database. I just happened to be in the BFRO. But the latest one was in December 2020. 2 motorists sighting of a Sasquatch 4 miles south of Silverton, British Columbia on Highway 6 near Slocan Lake. And then they just go, but then there's a big gap between like 2016 to 2013. And, I often talk about that with you, Vance, is the gaps in years where nothing's
Right.
reported.
Right.
Like, did nothing happen, or have people just not filled in those gaps yet?
Or just not reported it.
Yeah, that's what I
that
mean.
can
Fill in
happen
those
too.
gaps.
Right. Yeah, that could very well be. The activity remains the same, but people are just, I'm not talking about this.
Nope, not today. Nope.
Right. All right. So I'll throw a real spine chiller on anybody because I don't know whatever became of it.
Here we go.
Not one of my favorite researchers by any means. And I will certainly say that without any disclaimer. Whatever became of Todd Standing's suit against British Columbia? Anybody know?
Well, it went nowhere. I think it got thrown out.
Yeah, I didn't think it did.
It's funny because in preparation for this show, I pulled up Bigfoot, Survivor Man Bigfoot, right?
Yeah, I did too. And the second I saw that Todd Standing was in there, I shut it off.
But like, if you've been around in this field longer than 5 minutes, like when you've been in it as long as Henry and I have been in it, even as long as Henry's been in it, because Henry probably has a decade well, I don't know. I started in, reading about this shit when I was, 9. But the Todd Standing, I didn't really become familiar with till like the 2000s. But he's been notorious for this kind of behavior for a long time.
Right.
What was it called, Henry? Sylvanic, yeah.
Yeah.
And then these recent Bigfoot Muppets that he's put out there that he's posed as, it's just a bunch of BS. Go ahead, Baker.
Unfortunately.
No, I was just making the Muppet motion.
Gotcha.
Yeah. No, and I chuckle at the fact that, when you see a Todd Standing interview with him on camera, and then you look at the video of the Sasquatch that he captured, I'm like, well, the two of you look pretty much the same.
Well, the thing of it is with Todd
doing
Standing,
this? Yeah.
the thing of it is, like in that episode, he's going on to talk about this encounter that he had and how he was so terrified and scared and he was under attack. And, there's these Bigfoot sentries and all this other stuff he's come up with.
Right.
Like, come off it, man. Come down off your Coke binge and like get into reality. You do more damage to this field than, just the average hoaxer because you just got some national exposure, some worldwide exposure, and you made us all look like a bunch of assholes.
Right.
Yep, you just like the Georgia.
Yeah. No, and I don't appreciate it either. And fortunately, I think the majority of the community sees through it. Fortunately, I'm just kind of disappointed. And again, I'm not about getting on a political soapbox with censoring, but for those that are not familiar with Todd Standing, just be really careful of what you're watching, because
Absolutely.
I think it's more than 100% at BS. I really do.
It is. It's chronic bullshit. And if you
Yeah.
do a little research and we just instead of looking at these, evidence that's put out there and actually go back and do something that, takes a little effort called reading, you'd see that it's just the same crap he's been pulling for years. And I get a little pissed off about it because it never fails that if I'm on Reddit or somewhere else, you see someone like him and somebody's out there defending him and this has to be the real. No, it doesn't. It doesn't have to be anything. It has to be somebody who's good at convincing your dumbass that it's more bullshit.
Right.
Exactly.
No.
I think Steve Coles had the best expose of Todd Standing.
Well, and that's the one thing I appreciate about Steve, because he tackles these things head on, and I think he enjoys it a little too much sometimes, but that's okay, because somebody's got to. He could put, definitely gets his shots and puts the holes in the stories, but I mean, at the end of the day, it's about preservation of a purity of a research field that takes shots every 5 seconds from, just poor research and poor effort to actually investigate the information and the evidence that's being presented before people jump on a damn bandwagon.
Right. Right.
I would rather be a negative Nancy on this stuff and be wrong than be one of those instantaneous, I buy it 100%.
Right.
And look like a fool.
Right.
Exactly.
I have no problem saying I'm wrong and admitting I'm wrong. But I'm never going to be that person that instantaneously is like, that's it. That's a smoking gun. I need a little bit more than your word. I need a little something called proof and evidence and some vetted evidence from experts in different fields that will tell me this is why it's real.
And I think that's why we all pretty much ride the same train here, because we want a little bit more research done behind it instead of a knee-jerk reaction. I had a video presented to me today. I actually got a phone call, and it's like, hey, are you still on the premises? And I'm like, yes. Okay, stay right where you're at. I want to show you a video. And they came back and they show me a video of this quadrupedal creature that is really unique looking. And I'm like, yeah, I've seen that before. And the individual's like, yeah, but this is a chupacabra. I'm like, no, it's not. I've seen it before. I don't know what it is offhand, but it's very clear. And it wasn't a CGI, video. And it was only, maybe 15-second video. And so I did a quick research. No, it was a Brazilian wolf. They're really creepy looking. They're crossed between a really long, lanky looking hyena. And an unusual creature, right? A very unusual creature, but immediately it was like chupacabra. No, it wasn't. I've seen this before, and you will have that knee-jerk reaction of, "Oh, here's a cryptid on video, and it's interesting."
It's funny, chupacabra is probably one of the more prevalent cryptids where that happens, right?
Yeah.
Anything that you can't explain that kind of looks like a canine is a chupacabra.
Right. Yeah.
We've had one up here in Pennsylvania, Baker. Remember this mystery animal that was captured that escaped.
Oh.
They don't know where it went.
Just a little escape, like ripped through a cage, opened a window. I mean, this thing went full Houdini.
Gone. Yeah.
And
and Lord knows where it's at. We had monkeys, and now we've got escaped cryptids.
Same week that we had monkeys, like it was all outbreak in Pennsylvania.
But to the point,
February is a good month in Pennsylvania. Okay.
They're doing some DNA study on whatever that was that they captured. They still, I haven't heard anything yet about what the results show, but nobody was certain as to really what it was. Was it a mutated something or some sort of hybrid? I don't know. If I get some information, I'll do an update to this next week if we get something. But it's
that
all
would
in
be
the realm
great.
of what we do. Might not be Bigfoot per se, but this is how it's the little steps in cryptozoology that get us to the big steps, right?
Right.
Little
I
things
guess-
we learn. Go ahead, Bake.
Like a lot of these things, like the thing in Pennsylvania and like that, is a lot of times is I question it when they haven't taken enough photographic evidence. Like if you're going to tell everybody, take 40 pictures of the damn thing. If you've got it in a cage, take 20 pictures of the damn thing. Because like at the end of the day, it's not like you're in the woods and it walked by you and you forgot to turn on your phone. You've got it in a box in the corner.
Yeah.
Till your phone stops, like, and I just don't get it, because then they're like, well, we didn't have any evidence that existed. I'm like, but you handled it for like 6 days.
Right.
You're telling me you didn't take blood samples. You have no clue. You're telling me you didn't take pictures. You're telling me that you didn't try to feed it. You're telling me it didn't poop. Okay.
Yeah.
Like, don't tell me any of that crap and then say, oh, we got nothing. If you saw it for 4 seconds, yes, you have nothing. If you had it for 6 days in a box, okay, that box is full of crap, okay?
Right.
Either figuratively because you're a liar, or fully because there was a creature in there.
Yeah, that's a good point, Bake.
Well,
I
as we
got 100,000 pictures of my cat.
Yeah,
Okay, he lives in the
I
same
can go
house
through
I
my-
do. Just what I do.
Baker posts 20 pictures of his dog a day. Dogs.
Yeah,
a day.
like,
There it
like
is.
hey,
Right.
every morning I get up and I'm thankful he's alive. He's like 12
Well,
years old, okay?
We say the same thing about Baker.
He's 12 years old.
He's 12. No, that's the more every morning he wakes up and he's alive. But
Tomorrow's gonna be special.
yeah, he slipped on some ice today. I'm pretty
I
sure
didn't
that
slip. I flopped like a fish.
sounded like someone took a steak and slapped it on the counter.
Ooh.
Yeah. Stop me midstream. I was, I was like, what was that?
Just so we're clear, he wasn't peeing on me and I fell over. Okay? We're not putting those two things together, okay? All right?
Oh,
I'm calling
God.
the National Transportation Board right now for a
Just because I brought him
derailment.
breakfast doesn't mean,
Just because he, oh, God, here we go. Okay.
$20.
Hey, Brian Corbin wants to hear the Sierra sounds again. You know what? Maybe I'll just post that on the Sasquatch Experience.
Well,
Facebook
we
page.
could
Just that
post them in
commercial.
there. I get a little leery broadcasting them because we don't own the rights to the sounds, and even though it is for educational purpose, we do make a slight profit.
I think he was talking probably about the pre-news commercial. I'm
Oh well,
only
you're
assuming.
yeah.
That's what you sounded like after how many screwdrivers you had last weekend?
I don't know,
Is
but
that
I'm
the
on.
route you went?
This is where it ends.
We have
Henry,
derailed
Jesus,
off
Dad.
the British Columbia, and I'm sorry I didn't have more to add to the whole British Columbia thing. I'm good at a British accent. I'm good at a Colombian accent, but I cannot do the both. So
So you can't do
I have to
BBC, huh?
apologize. Yeah, I can't.
No.
Yes, Brian said the pre-news.
No.
You know what, Brian? I will post that on the Sasquatch
$2.
Experience Facebook page, just the commercial.
Well, I was going to end this on the note where we were going to talk a little bit more about John Green, but we are running out of time tonight.
No. You
$2.
can throw a John Green in there. You got 2 minutes. You can
Well,
do...
we'll just throw John Green the next week. We'll do a whole episode on John Green.
Oh,
There
that
you have
would be
it.
amazing.
There
There,
you
there it
go.
is. There's your next week episode, John Green.
That's right. Next week will be about John Green.
Yeah.
And
Sasquatch
folks,
hero.
since Baker's, throwing us out for $2 a month, you too can support us here at the Sasquatch Experience. Patreon.com/Sasquatch Experience. $2 a month is where it starts to keep this show going. You get the show ad free and a lot of other things we've got going to our audience, our supporters. We're really trying to kick it up a notch this year. It just takes a little time. Thanks for bearing with us, but we got some great things coming. Next week, we're going to talk about John Green. Henry, take us out, my friend.
Y'all be good or be good at it.
See you next week, folks.
You've been listening to Sasquatch Experience. Please rate and review wherever this podcast is consumed. To share your experience, visit us on Facebook or email us, squatchexperience@gmail.com. Keep on squatching.